Hello, I'm Drew Coverdale and welcome to this chapter of the Pain Habit Book Club. In this chapter, we'll look at how persistent pain is not a sign of failure, it's your system's perfect warning system. Chapter 8, your perfect warning system. Can you imagine juggling 50 trillion things simultaneously? Well, you do it right now and you do it unconsciously. You are amazing and possess a system with more interconnections between 50 trillion cells than there are stars in our sky. You do not need to look outside of yourself to be amazed at the wonders of the universe. That system runs in a perfect state of balance through actions and reactions within your body to keep us healthy without your conscious attention. You're alerted to join in that balancing act when you're aware of a sensation telling you to take action. As captain of your ship, you are prompted into action to maintain the status of your health. You are asked to help in a situation where your unconscious system has recognized something on the boundaries of its ability to maintain normal, unconscious, regulatory control. It's calling in the cavalry, and you are the general who has to arrange that and lead those troops to help. It has been doing its bit to allow you to daydream, focus, and imagine things that help you evolve, but now there's a threat. It's asking you to take action in a situation that could potentially be a problem if it continues. Your unconscious mind usually ticks along very happily, but when it notices a threat that you haven't sensed, it has to alert you. It's only interested in your survival. If you don't survive or respond to the threat, whatever else you were focusing on won't matter. It uses simple methods to monitor and maintain balance in response to the presence of threats. They're called thirst, hunger, physical pain, fear, and fatigue. These parameters do a pretty good job of sensing when something is not quite right. That could lead to a potentially damaging effect on your survival. If the threat is detected, they use sensations to prompt you to check the meaning or reason for that sensation, understand it, and, if deemed necessary, take appropriate action. Once you've acknowledged the sensation and responded, the balance is regained and the alert is turned off. Those warning systems can alert you gently with a nudge or forcefully with urgency, depending on the unconscious perception of the threat level. The intensity of the sensation dictates how quickly you may notice it and how soon you should take the appropriate action. They all alert you to the potential for damage before there is any, and they use physical sensations to do it. Take thirst as an example. You don't know the exact water level required to sustain your body, but your unconscious system does. You might have a rough idea that it's so many glasses per day, but the actual amount, the water level in your body starts to be so low that it's approaching a mild threat is measured unconsciously. When that happens, you become aware of that sensation of thirst, and it calls on you to take a drink. There's no imminent danger, but the water levels in your body are moving towards a level that could affect how you function. Same goes for hunger. Your body recognizes it as a time to take in nutrition, and you are gently prompted through the sensation to plan to eat something. The interesting thing about this notification you get is that you have a conscious choice to act or not act. You can assess the risk of not taking action and compare that to what you are doing to prioritize the most important thing to do next. You can feel thirsty or hungry and tell yourself it's okay to wait. Overriding a sensation like this is fine to a certain point when the warning is low, especially if the importance of what you are focused on is considered a higher priority. However, the need for water and nutrition remains, and the longer the delay beyond the first warning, the more chance of that warning intensifying and others being added to it. The message is related to the importance of eating and drinking within a certain time, ensuring the organism's survival. Not doing either will eventually lead to organ failure and death of that organism. So these warning systems need to pack enough punch to make you take action when you're consciously focused on something else, and that ongoing focus could lead to real harm to your system. If you waited until the end of the day to drink and consciously ignored all of the warning sensations your unconscious system had used to get your attention to prevent dehydration, eventually it would use such a level of discomfort that you'd have to pay attention. You finally realized the meaning and level of importance to act, so you now could focus on nothing else other than taking a drink. You may have ignored the thirst, then the dry mouth, then a feeling of irritation and lightheadedness until you felt so unwell you eventually got a headache. It is only at the point of headache that there was sufficient signal to get you to take action. Yet there were many other gentle warnings you could have responded to without allowing the alarm to be so loud. The same thing happens with hunger, physical stimulus, and fear. Hunger has a range of other feelings associated with ignoring that first feeling of needing something to eat. Think of what you feel if you've ever gone all day without food. Eventually, you'd end up with discomfort in your stomach with such intensity that the only thing you could focus on next would be to find something to eat quickly. With physical stimulus, your body detects pressure, heat, and chemical changes through receptors which fire when a certain threshold is reached. The warning gets sequentially more intense if the messages from those receptors are ignored and action isn't taken, until eventually the level of a perceived threat from that stimulus is sufficient for the unconscious system to use discomfort and pain to get the person to take action. Same applies to fatigue, and it's an easily recognized feeling when you've pushed yourself too hard for too long. It manifests in a variety of ways to prompt us to take action, representing rest and recovery. If we don't, that sense of fatigue gets worse. So that leaves only fear. Your unconscious mind uses an awareness of cues to a situation perceived as a threat based on past experiences. The feeling is a physiological response associated with the stress response, which, when initiated, is the emotion we give a name to. So if you take action, the fear or emotion subsides, but if you stay in that fearful feeling, it intensifies through the ongoing physiological changes occurring. The body is regulating the number of stress chemicals in the body at that moment, just like it's monitoring the level of water, nutrition, and physical stimulus. The chemicals involved in the stress response are perfect for preparing the body to deal with the perceived threat. However, these chemicals in the longer term are toxic to you. So the unconscious system has to have other louder, more intense warnings available. These are all the feelings that come with ongoing stress and become increasingly more uncomfortable for you. The drive of the system is to get you to take yourself out of that stressful environment, deal with it in some way, or change your perception of it so that threat and associated stress hormones reduce. The beauty of all these warnings is that they prevent damage. The individual can respond to any level of warning they choose. If they don't, the risk of damage becomes imminent. If you drink, there's no more thirst, and if you eat, the hunger fades quickly. These are systems that quickly learn the association with feelings that tell us when to act. It doesn't mean we always respond when we should get our response. It doesn't mean we always respond and when we should get our response right. There are lots of people who don't drink enough and many more who overeat. The conscious mind doesn't always respond or understand the message given by its unconscious counterpart. Research has actually shown that some people only drink when they eat, and actually they're thirsty long before that. They're not picking up on the sensation telling them that it's time to drink. Others eat more when they're feeling down to soothe how they feel. They're responding to a feeling, but this is not the right response for that sensation. They've made the wrong association at some point in time that whenever they feel low, eating something can make them feel better. So they no longer eat only when they're hungry, but also when they're feeling that way. This behavior becomes a habit over time as it becomes wired in the brain to those negative emotions. So every time the same emotion appears, there's a high likelihood of that behavior being repeated. Fortunately, most of us get it right most of the time, which creates a state of balance and health. We drink and eat when we're meant to, and usually avoid the discomfort of waiting too long. We remove our hand off hot objects quickly and the pain leaves. We switch on the light in a dark room and the fear subsides. We respond in a consciously protective way when we become aware of a message from our unconscious mind. Sometimes a quick response is needed and sometimes slow. Whatever feeling comes, we need the ability to sense it, the skill to consider what it means, and understand how to respond appropriately to it. That is more likely to happen if you've had good training from others, training yourself to respond at the right time and in the right way. This training about how to respond goes back to our childhood and what you observed and were unconsciously taught. Those lessons often lead to people in persistent pain misinterpreting or not responding to the messages their unconscious system gives them. Why would anybody not respond to these protective messages and choose to override something so important? Well, because we have free will. The conscious mind can choose to act based on what it senses. You're allowed your own path in life, but no matter who you are and what you want to do, your regulatory system will alert you to take action when it deems it is necessary. If you continue to ignore the message, the signal will get more intense, you will feel more discomfort, and the end point before actual damage is reached is pain. Real physical pain with no damage. It is protecting you by getting you first to take notice and take action if you choose to. There's no damage in your head, even though you have a headache at 4 o'clock in the afternoon from not drinking all day. There's no damage in your stomach with the hunger pains you feel from not eating for 2 days. There's no damage to your skin of your hand, even though you felt severe pain from the heat of the hot object because you pulled it away before burning yourself. There's no damage in your body, despite your stomach feeling in knots, your heart racing, or having tension in your muscles because you've stayed in a stressful emotional state for so long. Your body is simply telling you to deal with or get out of the situation causing that emotionally threatened state, as continuing any longer could lead to a real damaging and detrimental effect on your health. When the perceived risk of actual damage gets to a certain point, the output from the unconscious mind is so severe, it makes it practically impossible to ignore, and the person must take immediate action. That is your friend, pain. But because it has different meanings, we sometimes get the meaning wrong and respond in the wrong way. The sensation of hunger often gets mistaken for thirst, and the vagueness of physical feelings means the origin of physical pain has to be correctly understood. It gets mistaken for a physical cause when your skills of analysis have been biased due to the belief that all physical pain must always relate to damage. Science shows us that pain from physical and emotional situations originates in the same parts of the brain. Protection pain offers us is not from physical overload or trauma, but also from emotional overload or trauma. Your system has become too protected of you, not because it's protecting you from ongoing physical damage, but because of the level of emotional distress you continue to feel. Your danger alarm system now goes off much sooner to cues you may or may not even be aware of, and you experience real physical pain because of it. The triggers can be small, non-damaging physical cues or non-threatening emotional situations, but now they are perceived by your brain as a threat. Once your brain recognizes the emotional charge arising and the stress hormones associated with that thing getting higher, it senses danger, has to find the quickest way of alerting you. If you've not recognized and responded to the emotional stress responses given as a warning, then because that emotion is linked in the brain to your pain, it can trigger that pain. So you feel it in your reality now. The pathways in your brain forming that pain have become so well trodden and are fed by many different cues you don't even recognize as triggers of your pain. You experience the physical intensity of that pain, but because you believed it could only be of a physical origin due to damage, you search for the meaning of it in vain. Medical practitioners do the same. And on the basis that it could only be of a physical origin, they look for proof. The investigations you've had so far found proof, or they haven't. Either way, if you're in persistent pain now, You've been told that what was found is the cause of your pain. And if nothing was found, that you must just have to accept it and manage your pain. If a situation in your life involves physical or emotional overload or trauma, we can recover completely from it without persistent pain. Depending on the severity of that situation, we can do this independently with the physical or emotional resilience we possess. Sometimes we need healthcare or the help of others. The situations causing trauma or overload can affect any of us. If we all have the potential to recover, then what is it that differs? What determines why someone recovers completely and another is left in persistent pain? It must be the combination of the perception, resilience, personality type of the individual experience in that situation, and the social or healthcare support they receive to recover from it. Your entry point into the situation that triggered your pain and your viewpoint whilst and since experience it determine your lack of recovery from it. Your perception of what happened to you to cause your pain creates the stress that continues to drive it. Your beliefs about it, your resilience to it or lack of it, and your frustration to overcome it, your fight with it, fear of it, or feelings of dejection because of it, all contribute to its stain. If your perception is to push past pain or feel like you have to give in because of it, both approaches indicate you misunderstand the meaning of your pain. The belief that your pain relates 100% to tissue damage or the diagnosis you have triggers negative emotions influencing the level of stress you experience. As you view past, present, and future thoughts relating to your pain and the damage you believe it is due to, these repeatedly trigger the emotions that cause stress chemicals to rise to such a level that they can become toxic to you. Once you start to see your persistent pain as a perfect protective response to the level of stress hormones in you and the emotions causing them, dealing with the physical and psychological cues triggering that stress can have a life-changing effect on your pain. You are allowed to feel stress because that often drives us to get the best from our bodies and minds. However, there is payback if we push that stress system too far or too long. We were not designed to work that way. How we experience stress is no different than any other animal on the planet. The way we interpret the results of it and deal with it is unique to humans, and therein lies many of the problems we face. Truly understanding your stress mechanism, listening to it, and then learning to use it to your advantage is a gateway to an amazing opportunity that we all have. That's the end of chapter 8. If this gave you a new perspective on persistent pain and recovery from it, then let me know in the comments. Remember to subscribe if you want to follow other chapters, and remember that protection and healing go hand in hand.